small rendezvous put on by the folks in Ste Genevieve. It's a town that's beyond rich in history. The 18th century, mid-18th century time period that most of us represent, the French and Indian War era, this was a real town that really functioned, had an economy, lives just like we'd imagine today, and it's fun to be here for it.
But Ste Genevieve has a lot of houses and buildings that are of the 18th century time period. You can tour through many of them and check them out and actually get to feel and touch history. So it's kind of special for us as reenactors to be able to come to a place that actually has history that's still living today that we can enjoy.
All this is maple sugar. And they would make little breakfast like this.
Yeah, I just had a little piece.
All kinds of stuff that would want to hurt you.
And they just make it just like this.
And then they take it along with them?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's really sweet.
Yeah, it is. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it has, you can taste the maple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to make tea or coffee or whatever, you don't like coffee that's not sweet, cut a little bit of this off, drop it in there.
That's good. It's sweet.
Yeah, it is.
I like sugar and creamer with my coffee.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
That's just regular sugar.
No, this is the best sugar. And I've had this sugar for about 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So this stays good for a long time.
Engraved them, and then we would dry them so they would be hard, and then we would bale them, press them and bale them, and put them on the ships to send them overseas. And because it was a lot better if something like this got a little bit wet than if something like this got wet.
Yeah.
It would ruin it so much faster. That is a buffalo headdress that was started.
This is the old way.
That was from the Pete Rozier estate.
That'd be ridiculously hot, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be. My husband's got one that's a coyote.
Meat on it, and then eventually you get to where you're just grinding it.
And he can't wear this very long.
Yeah.
It gets his head hot.
Yeah. It's
But
got
that
to be
was
like
his-
10 degrees outside.
Oh yeah,
to
that
wear
was his first attempt at taxidermy. She tried to get her chickens, and we got her first. This is antelope. A lot of people think that's deer, but that's the antelope. And then, of course, this is the beaver. They would cut the hair off and use it for stuffing or padding. And then they would use the felt for making the men's waterproof hats. And then use the leather for making gloves and shoes.
This is a deer skin here.
That's antelope.
Oh, antelope, okay.
The deer skins are over there underneath
Okay.
trade goods. This is,
Pronghorn?
I think pronghorn.
Yeah.
This is a local coyote. It was actually the car in front of me hit it, so I called him and he went and got it. And then this is a northern coyote. Our daughter bought it for us in Indiana. The noses are distinctively different because this one has to go more into a tunnel than this would be, or a burrow to get food. This fur is a lot more thick than this is, even though they're both winter animals, because this one had a harder life. But this is also a bigger fur. That animal is a lot bigger. You have your red fox and your gray fox, which their footprints look totally different, and so do their furs. We have our possum, bobcat, my personal favorite, the skunk, black bear, various pieces, because it comes in different things. This is a weasel, muskrat, mink, and we have a whole bunch of mink. Because they're creepy looking with the eyeballs in them, but they were cheap and it's good so the kids can look at them and play with them. And then this is raccoon. And I said I like skunks. We've gotten enough. I need 2 more to finish it. This is my skunk cake that he's working on for me. We're matching skunks in the front.
You'll look like Cruella when you get that
That's
thing
what
done.
he said. Because I also have the purse. So he said I'm the Cruella de Vil of Ste Genevieve. So, but yeah, this is what they would. He would bring back, and when he brought them, he would take them the beads and the different trade goods to trade them for these. And it was a good income. Like I said, the beaver is the one that everybody wanted because that's the one that could do so many different things for. And you know, being waterproof was really great.
Can you tell me about the various trade goods you got?
Yeah, well, so we have a few different things. So in those old times, a lot of the times the women would want to make sure that their men look good. So some of the trade goods we have are like colored beads that the women would use to make designs on the men's clothing. And not only would they use beads, we have bone beads that would be used in making both designs on pelts and for chokers. Another thing were bells. They would get anything they could really to make sure that their men look good. Because it's kind of like a mother sending their children out in their best clothes on Sunday. You have to make sure the men look good, that way so they look good themselves. And something else that they would use is they would use knives to trade, and we've got a few different kinds.
This is a rabbit.
We've got some different games that they would also use to trade.
The white rabbit.
So, and a lot of it is like ivory, which is stuff that they would pull out of the mouth, so the animals that they would kill. Because nothing went unused. So, say you take down a buffalo or a bison, you take the horn and you'd make it into a powder horn, which you could use to trade for either a wool blanket or for a pelt that you were
This is a
making.
buffalo.
So, or if you were really needing to please your wife, you could get her a nice shiny new thimble to make sure she didn't hurt
This is a
herself.
coyote hat. That you definitely, it has to be cold to be able to wear this.
Thank you.
I'm still kind of a little out of this, so I'm just starting to get back into it.
All right. What about the grinder there?
So this is similar to a mortar and pestle. They would go out and find a stone that was nice and round that would fit their hand, and they'd also get another rock that had a bowl shape into it. That way, so they'd put their corn into it, and it would start looking like your regular whole kernel of corn, like you get off the cob, and they just put it in there, and they crack it, and then they just grind it up, where eventually they turn it into cornmeal that they could use for breads or for baking. So, and then once this one ran out, they would get a new one. That was so they know that they never had to worry about whether the stone was going to keep going or not. So, because after a while, the stone would wear down.
All right, thank you. What can you tell me about the game he's playing here?
So this is called Shut Out the Box. This was a game that they would make, and it has numbers 1 to 10, 1 to 12, and you take 2 die and you throw the dice, and so once you throw, so here he got a 12. He could put down the 12, he could put down any numbers that also equal 12. That way, so you're trying to just put all the numbers down. So it's kind of like an addition game, kind of. So the highest score I've gotten was I got a 4, because any numbers you aren't able to put down after all the other numbers you put down is your score. You add those up, that's how many points you got. The object of it is to get as many down as you can. So.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. What can you tell me about?
Well, today we're doing children's games and even some for adults. And we have things like checkers, which are called drafts. The French love to play cards, especially a game called 21, which we call blackjack. They would also play dice games, and then we have various kid things. It's kind of pre-television and Atari and Nintendo and all that. So you have just something simple and you get it spinning. Just kept the kid occupied. We have tops, which was a schoolyard game too. I mean, you had a circle and 2 people would spin their tops in, and whoever's top knocked the other one out, he got that guy's top. When they do it with marbles, and you have clay marbles, they didn't have the glass eye marbles that we're used to today, but little things like that. And you shot them with your thumb, the same kind of game. This is just a little whirly bird. You spin it and it flies off like a helicopter. This one is called Cup and Ball. and you swing it and try to get the ball in the cup. Let's see, we have a game called Graces, which girls like to play. They've always played it too. And there'd be 2 of them, and they'd each have one of these, and you cross the sticks, and then you pull them rapidly, and it would fly through the air, and your partner had to catch it. So that's another kind of game. Yo-yos obviously were popular back then. And one of my favorite games is one here called Shut the Box. Adults and kids love this game, and it's a combination of math and strategy, because you roll the dice and see what you got. There's a 1 and a 3, so I could either do a 4 or a 1 and a 3 to do it. And what you're trying to do in the whole game is to get all of them down. And so there I got a 3 and a 4. I've already used the 3, so I could do a 5 and 2 equals 7, or I could do a 4 and a 3. Or, no, I can't do the 4 and 3. So let's do a 5. Yeah, and a 2. So that's kind of the game, and you. The trick is to get all 12 of them down. It's really hard to get the top numbers. This is a little game. It's a little called a magic stick, and you rub back and forth, and the propeller spins. And if somebody says abracadabra, the stick or the propeller reverses. So that's a fun little toy. This one is you got a little slot, and you got a hole and a rubber band, and the goal is to get that rubber band and come out and have it snap back. But there's a trick to it, which I'm not going to tell you on television. So it's just a variety of things that kids played in the time period. Kids were expected to do a lot of chores. When they became 12 years old, they were expected to do the level of work of a human being, so of an adult. So it wasn't always easy. But they did. Girls also made dolls out of corn husk, and they made them out of yarn, little scraps of clothing, and they played with those.
Oh, okay. So basically, this is she would be the cook for our group. This would be the kitchen. We would come back, and then she would cook for us. So this is her setup, so that we would be fed and on an everyday basis, depending on what line of work you did. Yep. Hey Lisa, you want to explain to him what you do here while I get that out of here?
I would be a camp follower. I would be the cook. I would do their laundry. Where they would go, I would go. They would keep me fed, and maybe I'd get a little bit of money, but they would basically take care of me for taking care of them. I'm basically like a servant to them. The cabinetry, when they would come here and set up, I'm pretty stationary, and they would come, maybe buy some supplies, and I would do some sewing for them, basic care, even first aid. Anything that they basically needed done as far as a home, that would be me to take care of them. So there would only be one camp kitchen to probably take care of 15 to 20 guys, I guess, in a camp. There may be several women, but they would all work out of one basic camp. So, and like at home, usually the kitchen is where everybody kind of comes. So kind of the gathering spot. So got the wash pans and the copper, which is period correct. Of course, they would have heated water over the fire. Everything that you basically, on a smaller scale, would have in your kitchen without technology. So So I would prepare and maybe even clean the game that they would bring in. So I don't have any pots or anything sitting around. It would have been cast iron to use over the fires. And I probably wouldn't have had a big assortment. Just probably a big pot and a couple small skillets. And probably be lucky if I had a couple lids. Everything's pretty basic. Pot holders, dish rags would have just been scraps of wool from sewing. Really, it's just really a real basic life, and a lot of tough people that endured the elements out here. Personally, I have ancestry that's been here in this community since 1743. I have a 7th grandfather that was born at Fort Deschartres and then was relocated to Kaskaskia Island, Ste Genevieve, Old Mines, Blackwell, and Fertile, Missouri. The beginning of the Robert Hippolyte family.
It's how a Coeur de Bois, a Voyager would have slept. Just a diamond-shaped tarp. You'd put your wool blankets in there. You'd sleep with your wool blankets, and you'd carry everything light because you wouldn't want anything real heavy because you're carrying it to and fro from Indians to here as you're trading for goods to them and hides to the settlers. And then they would send it on up the river and send it back to France who wanted the hides. So this is kind of how you would do it. This is your job. This is, you would sleep in this tarp type diamond shelter. It's quick. You'd put a fire kind of out on the outside of it to kind of keep yourself warm and keep the mosquitoes and bugs out. And that's kind of the layup. You'd have things in market wallets, things on top. You know, that's coffee and flour, and that's kind of what you would use to cook with. So that's pretty much that's what you would do, is you would go up and down because you wouldn't want to carry a whole lot of stuff. You just very minimal to keep yourself somewhat comfortable and alive. So.
You do a lot of hunting or stuff too?
Well, you would do a little bit of hunting. We wouldn't do a whole lot, mainly to keep ourselves alive. So maybe the occasional squirrel, rabbit. You might get a deer, but you'd have to be pretty hungry for a deer because you're traveling, you know, pretty fast. You're constantly moving. You definitely catch fish. Most of us would have in our market wallet, we'd have a fish kit to catch the little panfish, and that's kind of what you would eat. Put that with some gravy. You'd have your fat, you'd have your meat, and that would be your meal for that night. You know, you may only get 2 meals a day because you're just always on the move, trying to avoid unfriendly enemies, Indians, and you got to get places to trade because that's kind of how you make your money.
Everybody's familiar with Jedediah Smith and all the mountain men of the 1840s right up to the Civil War that were a big part of American history. But before America was America, mountain men, well, frankly, the Appalachians and the Euganes and other mountains that were here along what we call the Midwest, that was the far west. And so mountain men looked a little different. French mountain men would have a light cap in the weather. You have to wear a shirt or you would not be allowed into town. But when you run with natives and other coureurs de bois, which coureur de bois is an adventurer. In English, the words would look like coureur de bois, but pronounced in French, it's coureur de bois. And you wear a breechcloth, which is quite modest. Actually, it does cover everything. It loops through and then back again, but it promotes good hygiene. It allowed people to dry quickly when they were wet. That was important. If the weather was getting cold, you simply could not be wet for very long or you'd die. It was a way of emulating Indian tradition or Native American tradition, and they respected that a great deal. I'm wearing a little pouch for some spectacles. a small neck knife, which you would use for small tools or tasks, such as cutting a patch off in a musket or perhaps skinning a small animal for a meal. I wear a lot of pearls because today is a little market celebration. I would be advertising that I have a great deal of pearls to trade for many mules and many barges and hire a crew for a barge or something. So I'm advertising affluence when I wear my saltwater pearls. The mountain men of that era would have relied on a tomahawk much more than a firearm. Light, fast, easily repairable. It really would have been the AK-47 of its day. It would have been the weapon you would see the most. Easy and light to carry, and you could do 1,000 tasks with it. Everything from daily maintenance of your camp to skinning an animal to defending yourself. So, Cure du Bois, very, very rich part of French history in the upper Louisiana territory. And get a book, read about it. It's fun as hell. So.
Okay, this is how it works. You get 3 chances, okay? It swings 3 times for your first try. So 1, 2, 3, that's your first try. Ready?
Okay, so you get 3 swings for each try. If you don't get it in 3 swings, then that counts as a miss then.
You get 2 points.
On 3. 1, 2, go. Oh! Oh!
Broken. We're being PC about our stabbing now.
2.
Sharp ass.
You ever been there? No. 3. Oh! Who's up?
That's his gun. And
Strike 1.
What I did last time, I just step forward.
Go.
Ready?
Strike 2.
Come on, my wife stuck it 3 times last year. Well,
he's trying to tickle it.
Glasses on. Oh, okay.
Hey!
Is that a hit?
Honor.
Remember, we got to eat this thing later.
Who's up next? Close your eyes. Hey! We got a 1.
Good stick. Good job.
That's 2. Wait.
Oh,
sorry.
you
Not towards him. 3. 3 out of 3.
Oh, sorry. Oh, here, let me pull it off.
3 out of 3. Miss. 1.
7.
Miss 2.
Start before it gets there.
I'm going to give you an outtake. Go ahead and leave it on.
Good try, buddy.
Thank you for observing what citizens would do in the 18th century to make sure that their contact lens prescription was working very well.
He is not the target. Number 1 rule. Do not stick me, target is cantaloupe.
That's 1.
Oh, come here.
Right. Oh, Nick.
That's bottom.
1. We'll give you 1. 4 kills.
What better not gonna do?
They quit doing it. 1 more?
We're done.
1 more.
Oh, I heard it. He ticked it twice.
He gave you the 1.
Oh,
was beautiful. I mean, it rained a little bit, but the rain quit enough to dry all the canvas out before we left.
Oh, strike 2.
It was on top.
Strike 3.
Hey, better.
British are safe.
That's a hit.
Oh,
Not a stab, but a hit.
Straight at
That's not like a hard cantaloupe.
Everybody can just angle it a little
the other one we cut in half.
One of them iron cantaloupes.
2.
Stop about when
Frozen?
all you do is come back.
Ginger arms straight.
Then they did a nice,
Kind of like you're pushing back. Yeah.
nice cut with the small watermelon.
Oh!
There you go, try.
We did a watermelon.
There it is!
Good shot.
All right.
Okay, we have dessert.
Strike 1. Hit though.
I went low.
How are you? How are you? Sam.
That's most places.
Long way from Indiana.
You swing it.
Hold it. Pull that stick.
Are you ready?
I don't trust him. Right?
But he loves you.
We love the cops.
Great one! It's harder than you think it is.
It is. It's just a little cantaloupe. It shouldn't be that hard.
I know. That's what I said. Okay. Let's
Gouge
go.
it. Yeah, you hit it.
Hey,
You gouge it. That counts.
he's got the flesh wound.
Great. You don't swing it.
You gotta hold it like
You
that.
gotta hold it like that for me.
Go back 3 times.
Each unit's captain has to hold it for you.
Hey! There's a
All the way
one.
through it.
There's a one.
He's all the way through it too. He's out the other side.
That's right. You can kill that English. Oh!
Close. Nick.
Slow down at the apex.
Oh, missed that one totally. I am.
You can put a grunt into that.
I will too, trust me. Woo!
Strike 2. Bring yourself and hold Pirate Nation.
Right here.
Step in a little bit.
I'm too close now. Oh, I missed. Strike 3. I'm out.
We'll dig you if you do well at this. Oh! Oh! Oh!
French.
Recruitment papers.
Oh, that one wasn't good.
It was a Nick. I heard it scratch.
There you go. 2 hits out of 3.
And that one.
He was worried he was a klutz.
His
So
head, he tore the side of his head.
very good. There you go.
Pull on it.
Oh! One more. Okay, here we go. Oh! Gotta get one. There it is. One.
He stabs it twice.
Come on, camera guy.
He wins. All right,
Beat
camera
him.
guy, you are up.
All you need is 2.
One.
Oh, there it goes. Oh.
Oh, you got one more shot. One more right here.
Oh. So we're tied for 1 each.
That was a Nick though.
Go ahead, go again. And let's see
Sudden
how
that
many you
stab
get.
off.
Go again. Another stab off.
Uh-oh. No pressure, man.
He's getting tired. It's heavy.
He threw the bayonet off.
Now I have to shoot it now.
He's French.
There we go.
He won.
Winner, you get chicken dinner.
Cantaloupe for dinner.
Appreciate that.
3-week plan.
Now lick it. No, I'm just lick it. All right, hook throw.
Okay, nobody else gets the licking out.
And nobody else gets to lick.
Better with a knife.
All right, we'll meet over to hawk throw here in about a couple minutes.
Cut his bottom. More? Yeah. Did you get it? Yeah, he got it. So how do you think you like the way it feels? Way better than the bayonet. It feels good though. Yeah. It's got a nice balance to it. That's what I like about it. Handle's the right side. Yeah, I'm gonna control that. Here's the guard back. Okay. Whoa, good girl. Remember, in her kitchen, you don't try to run out with hot rolls. 2. Yeah. You're done. For her, that's a shortcut. I heard it twice. Okay.
Doug, the hits on cards the only thing that matters?
What's that?
A hit on a card's the only thing that matters?
1 point for a hit on the card. 2 points if you hit center and split it.
That's all that matters.
So just a stick in the wood or a complete miss don't matter.
Yep.
Okay.
Hello.
Hey there, hey there.
Three throws.
3 throws.
I can't even stick it now. I'm done.
You guys got practice runs in mind.
I got one. Oh. Hey, you got a hanger. Stick in a hanger.
Make sure you get at least. That's the problem. The wind's blowing.
Yeah, I got it, but I'm just saying.
We've been remodeling a room in the kids' room.
I guess.
That's it, hardwood. Hey,
You did it. You did it. It got on.
You're hitting it. I'm gonna say that's pretty close.
I think there's too much stress on us right now.
Oh!
Hey, you're the winner. You're the only one that's stuck in so far. That would have been on the card. Roll over.
Instead of just standing still and throwing.
Kind of like throwing a baseball.
Well, at least you hit the wood. Excellent. Step into it and follow through. Almost. No wood.
It is. Both of them. Or don't forget the atmospherics. You got 2 more to throw, Doug.
Straight on the half rotation off.
Because he's too far back. Instead, you have to step off his foot.
Well, said the target was off.
We're going to mark our steps off. Instead of having a line to go from, we're mark our steps. So,
I mean, it's up to you. You're the one in charge of it. So.
This time we'll mark our steps.
Okay, cool.
don't go into the line. Yeah. Oh, through the uprights. Okay, we got 2 stickers. Oh, holy cow. You got his toes. Guy in the back seat. Newspaper.
Oh yeah, you throw it too. We want you to feel what it feels like firsthand.
Okay.
What you're gonna do? What you're gonna do?
Card off. Does that count? Got to count something. Hey, Jeff. All right. watch coat off, try to throw. Thinking each time I'm not gonna take this watch coat off. I'll get it this time. 20 times later, no, I'll get it this time. No way in hell. The only time you really ever actually do it is when you get a group of French guys, whatever, around you. You need some good guys throw you. Just to give you an idea of, God, did you? Two things that were very valuable. This is why you didn't get the card, but he owes me. There you go. I threw it. I still think I need to go fast. Well, they saw it. Right over the top. Ah, hit it. Hey, it was stuck in the ground. Uh-oh, we got a card.
Oh, now you're bragging, huh?
No. Hey!
I'm done.
Yeah. We have a winner!
Look like you may have.
Oh, yeah.
The run of his.
Oh, wow. Oh, got the foot of the guy behind him.
Oh!
I would.
So I could draw my knife.
I hit. Roll.
The weight on it.
I was down to Daniel Boone home volunteers down there.
I'm budgeted.
Oh, that was a big chunk of pop.
That one should have stuck. It seemed like the wood rejected it.
Nice! Yeah.
I practiced it. There's no way it's happening.
Straight down here. Drag your foot back.
That was the same spot that you've been throwing at all along and hitting on the head.
That way you're pointing at the top, but you're releasing coming as you come through. You brought it down a little bit. A little high, goes. Whoa, that was a good one.
Monsieur, I'm Jean-Baptiste Thoreau, a gunmaker from Cahokia, and I came down here this weekend just to see what's going on. You know, as you probably, you know, people have asked me, well, what's going on? Well, this is 1764, and that's a critical year for this part of the world. As you know, us French lost the war, and last year the Treaty of Paris essentially ended the war, and that treaty gave the Anglais everything east of the Mississippi except New Orleans. And then I understand that the Spanish now control everything west of the Mississippi, okay? And what we're, now even though the treaty has given the Anglais all this land east of the Mississippi, no Anglais have shown up yet, okay? But we know that they're coming. And this, earlier this year in February, Monsieur Leclerc took all of his trade goods out of the storehouse at Fort Deschar, and he hired 30 men, including myself, to actually pole and row all that stuff up the river in bateau and help him build a new trading post, which he's named Saint Louis, and it's across the river from Cahokia, where my wife and I have lived since, I think, about 1731, when the missionaries offered a lot in town and several acres of land to anyone who would move into Cahokia. And the reason that my wife and I moved from Deschar up to Cahokia is from Kaskaskia up to about Saint Philippe. Agriculture that's what was the main thing. And I don't want to be a farmer, I'm a gun maker, but I could see that Cahokia was becoming a more of a major trading center. And so from Cahokia, I thought that I could continue doing contract work on the fort's guns, and also perhaps gain some of the repair work for the Sauvage, and do, you know, keep a low profile and do a little trading on that. And it's worked out fine for my wife and I. But right now, with things sort of up in the air, people are concerned, and myself, my wife, and then most of our neighbors, we are actually moving across the river to Saint Louis, and as we speak, an Anglais and one of our Negroes is building a house for us on our lot in Saint Louis. Now, of course, we're going to keep our lands over in Pas d'Illinois, and the concerns we have, I guess number one, of course, are the Anglais going to allow us to continue practicing our religion, or are they going to do as they did when they conquered Ireland in the last century? Are they going to kill our priests and destroy all of our churches? We don't know. The other big issue is, are the Anglais going to allow our French women to continue to enjoy the property rights that French women in France and in New France enjoy? And by that, I mean that in France and New France, every marriage is preceded by a marriage contract. And that marriage contract spells out the property that the wife and the husband brought into the marriage, and how that property will be distributed if the marriage is, or when the marriage is dissolved due to death of one of the people. And what I learned from English prisoners and English traders, that the English women who live on the Atlantic seaboard, they don't enjoy those property rights. When they get married, all their property, it becomes property of their husband, and they have no further control over it. And so they could actually be impoverished upon the death of their husband if their firstborn son is not generous. And then finally, the last thing we're concerned about, are the Anglais going to honor our land claims? So that's what we don't know. So I don't know. What I've been showing some of the people here today is some of the equipment that was issued to us when we went on campaign during the 7 Years' War. And, you know, I've been telling them I start off with the Soviet Wolf. Now, they may look like moccasins, but they're really not. There's shoes that are made of real thick oxide. I mean, that's like, oh, it's that thick. And unlike moccasins, which we make ourselves, the Ste Genevieve are made on a wooden last by a cordwainer. Hey,
Well, that kind of behavior, young
Diane,
man,
you brought him
we're gonna put
anyway,
you on
right?
report.
So, have you stopped?
No.
Oh, anyway.
I can. I'll.
Edit.
Yeah,
So
continue.
we are at Ste Genevieve. Now we are in the storehouse over at the Shar. They also issued us a deer skin, you know, to make regular moccasins. But these Ste Genevieve are, again, we don't make these ourselves. They're made on a wooden last. And of course, next they issued our Matisse, which are wool leggings, a wool breechcloth, and 2 shirts, and a toque. Now that's what the orders were, and often we got those. But again, keep in mind the clerk in the storehouse could only, regardless of the orders, could only issue what the clerk had on hand. And the second thing is because they were issued, don't assume that we brought them on campaign. For example, if this shirt, which was issued to me, is nicer than the one I have at home, I'll take the worn out shirt on campaign and leave the good one at home. And that pertains to a lot of other equipment. And one of the things I'm sure you're aware of is this French like a lot of knives, okay? And we all carry a little neck knife here. And some people call them French scalpers, but I think the only their Sauvage did as much scalping as our Sauvage. This is an interesting knife, again, which were issued when we go on in campaign. The Simois, and this is La Platine, the lock. And it's a wooden folding knife, and to use it, you put your thumb on La Platine so that when you're cutting, it doesn't come back on your fingers, and then we close it. And what I tell the younger kids, I'll hand them all this stuff, and I'll just tell them, be very careful, because if you cut yourself, if you're stupid enough to cut yourself, I'm going to send you to our surgeon. And the surgeon, you don't want to see him, because even though you come to him bleeding, he's going to attach a couple of leeches to you to bleed you out a little more. And for good measure, he'll purge you. Now, most of them don't know what purging is, but then once they find out, they handle their knives very carefully. And of course, this is the butcheron, the butcher knife. And you'll notice that both of these knives, they've got a maker's mark here. These were made by the same maker. And of course, this one has a little different maker's mark because it was made by somebody else. Now, a lot of the Malise actually carry a knife down in their garters, but I don't do that because I'm afraid I'll lose it. Now, another thing that we're issued is a cassette, which is head basher, and you know, everyone likes to feel the heft of the cassette. We're not necessarily issued this, but we do bring it. And most all the people around here, since they're French, they understand that this is the English. Most of them wouldn't know what it was. But we're French, we're clean, our women are beautiful and smell good. Another thing that we're issued when we go on campaign is tobacco. It's plain old tobacco. And you might be interested in the engraving on that tobacco tin. Look at that and tell me what it is.
Those 2 cherubs? No, mermaids? No, I actually can't tell because I see the scales at the bottom and the wings.
You said cherub, right?
Yeah.
What are they doing? I know it's hard. The light's hard to tell.
Looks like they're. Looks like one's trying to choke the other one.
That's exactly right. And what that is, that design came from one of the French gunmakers' pattern books, because in the 17th century in Paris, which at that time was the artistic center of the world, the gunmakers there, the really top Parisian gunmakers, they made pattern books of embellishment to be put on guns, and these pattern books were widely distributed, you know, to other gun makers and expected to be used. Well, this, the cherubs choking each other was one of the designs in one of the pattern books. And the guy who engraved this, I didn't engrave it, the guy who engraved it, he actually embellished it. He put the angel wings on it. And it's interesting, I'm not sure why, but why would the gun maker, who do have a weird sense of humor, by the way, why would he have the cherubs choking one another? Do you have an idea, Bishop? Well, I wonder. I'll give you two options, two possibilities. The 30 Years' War in Europe, I mean, it was the Protestants fighting the Catholic, and it was very devastating, okay? And it may allude to the Protestant or Catholic cherubs. They're choking one another. That's what it could allude to. The other possibility is my understanding is after the 30 Years' War, in the Catholic areas, the Catholic Church undertook a program to Baroqueize everything. And these Romanesque churches and that, they were made over with all this elaborate Baroque ornamentation, which included a lot of cherubs, okay? And so it's possible this gun maker said, by God, they want cherubs, I'll give them some cherubs, and made them choking each other. I don't know. The other thing I've been doing is showing, particularly the younger people, my Charlottesville musket, and allowing them to fire, and not allowing, I'm helping them to fire it today. And we can get in and I can show you that if you want, or you can wait until some of the other people come here and watch, and that might be better, would be to watch them. I've shot that gun thousands of times. I like helping the people who've never shot one shoot it, and that's what I enjoy doing. So if you can wait just a second, I think our business is picking up this year. These are blank cartouche, and that's about 85 grains of black powder in this paper. And fire these. Go on out here. We'll stay.
Bring your safety glasses?
When this, is that your mother? Yes. When your mother shoots, she'll have the safety. You can wear them yourself. But you've already got glasses.
No, I mean, that's just like Pep, because Pepe's up there by himself, and he knows he's going to ask me.
I'll tell you why.
I asked the guys I know, hey, would you come over and read?
This is a Charlottesville pattern
showed up yet.
and the reason it's called a flint.
Well, I'm not that way. You didn't ask me, did you?
This is a piece of flint, which is stone, real hard stone, and this is a piece of real hard steel.
That's what I think when you say
And this Charlottesville pattern was the standard French infantry musket from about 1718 up to the present day, 1764, as you remember. And what happened is every few years the French would make a minor change to it, and they give it a new model designation. We don't need to know too much about that. You'll notice here, the first thing I want to do, before I do anything else, is check to make sure if it's unloaded.
Yeah,
Because
you always want to do that.
That's
because
right.
It could, if it isn't loaded, it could fire off accidentally, and it might hurt somebody.
That's right, and it's and as you know, it's been said, a man who couldn't hit the side of a barn with a loaded gun will shoot his grandmother out of her rocking chair off her porch from 100 yards away with an unloaded gun. So you think about that. So what we're going to do, we're going to double check. It's a steel ramrod. You see the way that jumped out of there? The reason that jumped out of there was because the end of the barrel is a threaded plug that closes it into the barrel. Had there been a charge down in there, it would have gone boom, and we know it's loaded. So now we know it's not loaded, right? So when you fire this, when you're going to fire it, what you're going to do, you're going to bite off the end of this paper. You don't do it now, because you're going to bite the end of that, spit that on the ground, and you're going to pour a little powder into that pan. You see that hole in the side of the barrel?
Yeah, it'll flow in through there.
Well, it's what I don't know that much is going to flow in there, but what's going to happen then, you're going to close the steel, and when you fire it, this cock is going to fly forward. The flint is going to hit the steel, and it's going to shave off pieces of that steel, which are really hot. They're going to ignite that powder, and it's going to flash. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to prime it, and then the rest of that powder, you're going to pour it down the floor. And so you're not going to put the ramrod for safety reasons, because if we loaded this and packed it down with the ramrod, I might get distracted and then fire the ramrod in it. And this ramrod will probably go 60 or 70 yards and could kill or injure somebody. So we're not going to withdraw the ramrod anymore. So what you're going to do once you pour the powder down there is just settle it, okay? I'm going to see your shooting. First I want to show you what I want to see, okay? I'll tell you what I don't want to see. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see any of this. Are you right-handed? Okay. I want you standing comfortable. I want this left leg to be fairly straight. A little more of your weight on that left leg. I want you to hold up right over your shoulder. Head down. Onto the two feet. Elbow out. Draw your bead on that Renard, skulking around out there and shoot them, okay? Now, if this is too heavy, I'll walk. We tell people, whatever gear you want to get into, I don't care. You want to, well, let's get started. Okay. Let's put those teeth in action. You can't bite it off by the end.
Go ahead and bite it off and then.
Did you get it? No. This is tough paper. Right. Now let's pour a little of that in. I'll show you how much to pour in. A little more. A little more. Oh, I think that's probably good. Close the steel. Just snap it down. Don't touch that flint because it's really sharp. You don't want to see the surgeon. Just snap it down hard. Okay, now you're primed, right? And
the rest of
it down. Shake it, dig all down there. Throw it down. And then settle that charge. And then let's check up here. Now again, even though we're shooting blanks, we don't want to shoot anywhere near where a person is. You aren't going to see it. Sit probably 3 feet of flame. And there might be just start asking certain stuff. Go to the I know best. Straighten out. Lean into it. Now this head should be straight. Remember I said straight? Actually, he told me into it. Yeah, not too bad. All right, I'm going to help you with the weight. When you're ready, I want you to pull that cock all the way to full cock. But I go down there. It's going to be hard. Pull it. I put everything else. Okay. Draw your bead. Sight in on that Renard skulking around out there. Oh, no. Okay, have you ever heard the expression flash in a pan? I bet your mom has. What you got is flash in a pan. That's not fun. I'm going to clean this. This black powder is so
it doesn't have any kick.
Well, it's because it didn't go off. That's right. It didn't kick.
So it actually does.
And it won't kick because we're using blanks, so it's not going to have any recoil. I'm going to take this little pick and clean that flash hole out, okay? And let's put a little more priming powder in. Oh, we had some in here. Take this cartouche. And then you have about 20 orders. Prime it. You do is just charge them $500 or $600. What you want, here's what it's going to cost. Yeah, well, everybody does. Peppy's the same way,
Fire?
Yeah, go ahead when you're ready.
Nope. Just go ahead.
Good job, monsieur. Good job. Madame?
Okay.
And I said, you know,
All right, let's bring that back to half cock.
William Henry's going on and all this.
Yeah.
Why don't we go out
Now one thing, hold on this, I want to show you.
Okay.
Have you ever heard the expression going off half cock?
Yes.
Let me show you where that comes from. Half cock is a safety. See, it's not firing. And so that means, think about it, this gun went off when you thought it was on safety, it went off half cock. That's likely to cause a problem. You ever heard the expression lock, stock, and barrel?
Yes.
Lock, stock, and barrel. It's the complete gun. You buy something, not even a gun, lock, stock, and barrel, you bought a full gun. That's where these expressions come from.
Oh, neat.
So anyway, you're at half cock. Let's bite that off. And then I'll show you what a little is. You start pouring a little in there. A little more. Oh, that might be pretty good. Let's try that. Close the steel.
You guys having a good time?
All right, and then powder down the bore.
Got any questions about what's going on?
Now, if we were using live rounds, the lead ball would be in front of this paper, and you'd stick paper and the ball down and ram it with that rod. And the paper keeps the ball from going out the barrel.
Oh, cool.
And then just settle the powder a little bit. All right, and then draw your bead on that Bernard scope around out there. And you have to bring it back to full cock first. Grab it up here. Don't grab it flat.
Mom, you've got to cock it first.
Bottom seat, yeah.
Gotta get all drop on it.
Yeah.
Next thing you know.
I'm gonna get the weight off of it for you. Now bring that back to half cock. Pull hard. Okay, that's good. Okay, it looks clean. A little bit now. I'll show you how much. A little bit.
They came over for the Popeye cooking.
A little more. A little more. A little more. Of course you are. Fast learner.
And I do martial arts.
Then just shake that powder down in there. And then settle it. Okay, and I'll help you with the weight. Full cock.
And they broke the wing.
And they'll get a fish.
Slide it and fry it.
Oui, monsieur. Good job.
What I'll do is